I welcome Professor Jitni Reyes to introduce our expert.
Thank you, Bindiama. Good morning, all. Respected Head of Department, Dr. B.V. Matthews, sir, expert for the session, Mr. Hemant Narayanan, dear colleagues and dear participants. A warm welcome to one and all for the next session of Faculty Development Program, Modern Trends in Civil Engineering and Construction Industry. It's with great pleasure I am here to introduce the eminent expert, Mr. Hemant Narayanan. For the last 30 years, he has been working with Boyer, a company based in Germany, specialized in foundations and ground improvement, having subsidiaries in about 72 countries around the world. He is now in Jakarta as director for Boyer Indonesia. During his work with Boyer, he has worked in various positions in Singapore, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Kenya, Germany, etc. On behalf of Civil Engineering Department of College of Engineering Kidangur and all the participants present here, and my own behalf, I welcome you, sir, for taking session on retaining wall for deep basement using secant pile wall and top-down construction. We are very grateful you took time from your busy schedule to address us. Over to you, sir.
So I can start sharing the screen now?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Respected faculty members of Government Engineering College, Kidangur, and also in the audience, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all. I'm speaking from Jakarta, Indonesia. Over the last few days, we have seen some very good presentations made by experts in the field of materials, design, health monitoring of the buildings, drone technology, and so on. And almost all of them, or a majority of them, are related to structures on the ground or above the ground. In this session, for the next 1 hour or so, we are going to go underground. For any building, there are two phases, a substructure and a superstructure. The substructure consists of a basement retaining wall and the different floors of the basement, and the superstructure consists of the various floors of the building, which depending on the height of the building will keep going up. But the difference is for a building to go above the ground, the basement works needs to be completed in time, and this is the most difficult part of the whole construction process. And this is a time when no overlapping work can be done on site. Whereas in the superstructure works, once the few floors are constructed, few other works can be started in parallel and overlapping. So the basement construction is a very critical point of the whole construction schedule. For this method of works, actually very special equipments are needed. And one of the companies who is actually very specialized in constructing these kind of basements and also in the manufacture of similar kind of equipment needed for these works is this company by the name Bauer. It is based in Germany, and it's almost more than 230 years old because it's started in 1790. And it is present in more than 70 countries, having about 11,000 employees from 95 different nationalities. This company has been involved in a very big jobs around the world. To name a few, you can see from the pictures, starting from our neighborhood in Kuala Lumpur, from the Petronas Towers, all the way to Burj Khalifa, which at the moment is the tallest building in the world. And in the very near future, it will be overtaken by the Jeddah Tower in Saudi Arabia, which is 1,001 meters. All these buildings are founded on piles done by Bauer, very deep piles, 100 to 105 meters, 120 meters of diameters of 2.5 to 3.5 meters. Some of the equipments which are used in this kind of constructions, and especially for the topic we are going to discuss for the basement wall construction, are the drilling rigs. The basement wall can be constructed using both interlocking piles or contiguous piles or diaphragm wall, and for this special kind of equipment is needed. So these are the pictures of the drilling rigs which are normally used for the boat piles and the secant piles. And these pictures coming up are for the diaphragm wall, which is also another kind of basement wall using grab or a cutter when you have hard material. And this is another equipment used for ground improvement. This is shown only just for general information of the people. So we quickly move on to the second part of the presentation, which is the construction of the secant pile. In the past, most of the basements are constructed using. Before I move on, I have to highlight that this presentation is purely from a construction perspective and the various steps involved. The retaining wall is made up of different kinds of piles or diaphragm wall, as I mentioned earlier. Soldier piles are used when the soil is relatively in good condition, where you can space the piles with a gap in between, and the gap is then supported by shotcrete or any kind of cement plastering. If it is not really good, then we could also use contiguous piles, which is just close to each other, but then you have the problem of the water flowing through between the piles. The topic we are going to discuss is secant piles, where the retaining wall is made up of interlocking piles built in a particular way, which is having unreinforced piles and reinforced piles. In an urban landscape where the land value is going through the roof, the developer needs to make use of his land as much as possible. Especially in cities, big cities, this is made possible by building, having basements, and also going taller to whatever number of floors we are in nowadays, which is in the range of 60 to 70 floors per building. So when the basements, we can also go deeper depending on the soil conditions and the design. So in this part, in this presentation, in the second part, we will focus on a particular way of constructing a basement wall, which is called secant piles. And in the second part, we will discuss about how a basement is excavated, which is slightly different from the traditional way of excavation. So for a secant pile, it is basically built having a combination of piles interlocking each other. And the process is in two different ways. First, the piles are drilled and cast without reinforcement, but with a certain space in between, and they are constructed for a few numbers in a sequence, and all of them will be unreinforced. Later on, after 1 or 2 days, when the concrete has reached the first setting strength, the equipment comes back and drill another pile in between the two already cast primary piles by overcutting into each other, thereby forming the interlocking system. And these piles are having reinforcement. So once the wall is completed, this combination of interlocking piles, which is unreinforced and reinforced, will form a monolithic wall, which then will be topped off by a capping bay. In certain structures like a jetty wall, with a quay wall, where used in the harbors for where the ships are docking, sometimes the excavation in front is very deep because of the dredging depth needed for the ships for the draft of the ships. So in this case, the possibility of providing reinforcement on the primary piles is also done by having a specially designed cage in a different shape. Why this is in a different shape is because when you're overcutting the secondary piles, you need to make sure the steel cage already installed in the primary piles are not disturbed. So we will go into the step-by-step process of constructing a secant pile. It consists of mainly 4 or 5 steps. The first step is to make a guide wall. All these steps I will go into the detail. The second step is the drilling. Once the piles are drilled to the required design length, the cleaning is done. If it's a primary pile, it's followed by concreting. And if it's a secondary pile, then we have the installation of the steel cage and then followed by the concreting. So it's very similar to drilling both piles, but it is slightly different in the equipment used and also the alternate piles of reinforced and unreinforced piles. So we go into the details of each and every step what has just been mentioned. A secant pile needs a guide wall. Why you need a guide wall is primarily to control the alignment of the piles. If when you have a basement wall which is on the edge of your property, it's very important it is built in the correct alignment. So this guide wall, which is actually a temporary work, will control the alignment of the drilling and also the position of the piles. Just for information for all of you, the left bottom picture which you see is the already constructed portion of a secant pile, where you can see the primary pile has already been cut by the secondary pile which has been installed on either side of this primary pile, and this primary pile is unreinforced. This primary pile used to be circular in shape, but now it has been cut into an arc by the secondary piles which has been installed after this primary piles has been cast. How does the construction of a guide wall start? The guide wall mainly starts with excavation followed by plain concrete, and then we have this reinforcement placed in certain designed ways, like depending on the loading needed on the guide wall, and we have the formwork done. The formwork is in a shape where when it's removed, it will form arcs into which the future casings for the drilling will be inserted. This is the guide wall which has just been cast, and in the next picture you can see how a guide wall looks after the formwork has been removed. So this way you can see the alignment of the wall is perfect. Each and every position of the pile is defined, numbered, so there is no confusion created for the site team. They know exactly which pile is in which position. Normally the odd numbers are the primary piles, because 1, 3, 5, 7, and the even numbers are the secondary piles. So whenever you have an odd number seen, you know it's a primary pile. As I mentioned earlier, we construct a few primary piles in a line and then come back and do the secondary piles. The drilling process is done using a special type of casing which is having a double wall. The double wall is because it is constructed of two tubes, one inside each other, and having stiffness in between the two tubes. And on top and bottom, you have a male and female coupling welded on to these tubes. The advantage of having these couplings on both sides of the casings are these casings can be joined and extended as and when depending on the soil conditions. As a thumb rule, what we normally do in our projects is until the excavation depth is reached, the pile is drilled fully cased. That means by extending the casing piece by piece. And after a certain stage below the excavation depth, and when the good soil is reached, the drilling is continued without the casing, but the overlapping will still be done. So the drilling rig exerts the power to install the casings and later for the drilling from the gearbox. But the power from the gearbox is translated to the casings through a special equipment called an adapter, which is fixed to the casings using pins. So once these pins are fixed, the rig will push the casing into the ground and rotate at the same time until the full length of the casing has been pushed down. And then once the casing is pushed down into the ground, the pins are removed, and then drilling starts. The drilling will only be continued until the toe of the casing. It will never go beyond the casing depth. The advantage is you avoid the chances of collapse, which is a very big factor in terms of a basement wall, because if there is a collapse, you have concrete bulging and later on a lot of repair works. So the second step of the drilling would be then to join the next piece of casing using the screws or the holes what you have seen, which I'm coming to the detail later. So this male and female coupling allows us to join casings using special screws, and by using the power of the rig, it can be pushed to a depth of about 20 to 30 meters depending on soil conditions and the basement excavation, as I've earlier mentioned. This item number 4 is the most important part for the casings, because it has got special teeth fixed at the toe. So this teeth is what is actually cutting the soil, and also for the secondary pile, cutting the primary pile when it is overlapping. So it's a very strong drilling consumable, which is made of tungsten bits, and it's fixed to the bottommost casing because that is what is doing the cutting part of the drilling. So the process of drilling starts. So now I explained you the importance of this casing and how a casing is structured. So this first picture is showing you a rig which is about to start drilling. It is already hanging the casing after fixing by the pins. It will be pushed into the hole in the guide wall. And before that, verticality checks are done. All this equipment made by Bauer have inclinometers inbuilt into the cabin. So the operator is very clear about the verticality of his mast and also on the casing. As an additional feature, workers also check the mast's verticality using a spirit level. That is what you see here, what is happening now. The second picture, you see the first casing has already been pushed down to the ground and the second casing is placed on top. So the holes, what you have seen are the holes for the screws where you will join the two casings using the conical screws. And then again, the verticality check is done before the drilling is continued. In this way, the drilling is continued to the design depth. The casings are pushed down to whatever length is already determined depending on the excavation and also on the soil conditions. The advantage, again, repeat, is the drilling is always done within the casing, so there is no possibility of collapse, which enhances the quality of a basement wall. But after you drill, we need to make sure the pile is vertical or the hole is vertical, whether it's a primary or a secondary. The drilling process is the same for a primary and secondary, except that the secondary, you have a slower drilling progress because the primary pile on either side of this particular secondary has to be overcut. So the cutting of concrete by that special shoe, what you have seen in the earlier picture, it takes time rather than more than what you take for the primary pile, because primary pile you are just drilling into normal soil. For the secondary pile, you have to drill into normal soil as well as cut their neighboring piles to get you the interlocking action. So the drilling process of a primary and a secondary is the same. Once the drilling is completed, special equipment called Coden. This is also in one of the first sessions I attended in this FDP program. There was one very good session on different kinds of sensors being used for monitoring the deflections of the wall, building, and so many other things. And this is also another use of that kind of sensors, because in this Coden mission, as the sensor portion is lowered into the ground, the results are transmitted to a computer, which you can read directly and even take a printout, which will show you exactly how the hole is looking, whether is it inclined, whether it is vertical, and whether there are any collapses already happened or not. This is very important because every pile needs to be vertical. If there is one or two pile not vertical, and if they are in opposite directions, you create a big hole in the basement, which can give rise to a lot of problems for repair in terms of water flow, water ingress, soil flowing into the basement, which is not acceptable to the client. So this is a very important step needed to make sure for every hole the verticality is checked using this Coden mission. This is a very sophisticated mission made mostly in Japan. There are other makes also from China, but this gives you very accurate data on the deviation, if any, and you can even calculate how much deviation is there. So once verticality is checked, then you have to make sure the toe of the pile is clean, because during the drilling, a lot of debris would have collected at the bottom of the pile, which is the toe of the pile, which is very important, especially when in board piles, if you have end-bearing structures, you need the base to be very clean so that the designed carrying capacity is achieved. For the retaining wall, the end bearing is not so important, but still it is not allowed to be having so much of debris at the bottom of the hole. There are two ways of cleaning the bottom of a hole. One is the first picture, which is a bucket, drilling bucket or cleaning bucket, which when lowered into the ground to the final level and rotated, there is a bottom plate, which is a flat plate, which will push all the debris into this bucket. And then this bucket can be rotated in anti-clockwise direction and locked, and you can pull up the bucket, so all the debris inside the bucket comes up, and is disposed outside. You do this a few times, you get a very relatively clean base. But sometimes, depending on the soil conditions, you might need to do an extra process called airlift process. And this way you actually clean out almost 95% of the fine material what is collected at the bottom. Airlift, I need to explain in a separate slide. Airlift is just that you lower some pipes after the drilling is completed, obviously. You lower some pipes along with the air hose right to the bottom of the hole. The air hose is connected to a compressor, and once all the pipes are in place and the disposal lines are set up, the compressor started working and blows air through this hose to the bottom, and from which is into this hose is having an inlet into the pipe. So that air will start pulling up water from the bottom to the outside and start dispersing it to the distribution lines. While this is happening, it's very important. You need to keep topping up the water or the slurry, what has been used, to maintain the hydrostatic force inside the shaft. Otherwise, collapse happens. This picture illustrates a very clear difference between the starting of the airlift system, where the water is brown color almost, and almost finishing is, you can see how much the water color has changed, which indicates that the bottom of the hole has been cleaned very well. This is one of the best ways of cleaning the bottom of a pile or any drilled shaft, if you use the proper kind of compressors and pipes. If it's a primary pile, after the airlift process or the cleaning process is done, we can go directly to the concreting. If it is a secondary pile, then the next step is the installation of a steel cage. Prefabricated steel cage in lengths of 12 meters are joined either by welding or by couplers, or another method is by having U-bolts tightening the splice length bars and lowered piece by piece until the full design cages are lowered. Care is taken to make sure proper spacers are provided at the designed intervals, and also the spacing of the spirals are maintained, because these are very important factors for the movement of the wall. If it is a primary pile, as I said, concreting has to be started. If the secondary pile, after the reinforcement is lowered, the concreting is started. In both piles, which is normally drilled under water pressure or slurry, stabilizing slurry, concreting is done using a method called tremming. Tremmies are nothing but normal pipes having a coupling, male and female coupling, and can be joined piece by piece, which can be lowered all the way to the bottom of the hole. The diameter of the pipe is about 250 millimeter. And once it is lowered all the way to the bottom, on the top part you will have a hopper through which the concrete is poured. So the concrete trucks which has been ordered by the site management would be on the site, and as soon as the tremmy lowering is done, the concrete trucks comes near to the hole and discharge the concrete directly into the hopper. This is again another place where the earlier presentations made by a gentleman who in terms of, I think that was something related to materials, where he spoke about workability and slump retention. For concrete using tremmy pipe, it's very important. Yeah, the word he used was self-compacting concrete. This is one of the places where the self-compacting concrete is used. Any concreting done under any slurry or water, you have a self-compacting concrete. The difference is in this, the slump is in the range of 180 to 200 mm, unlike in the structures where you have 12 mm, 120 mm. Here it is 180 to 200 mm, and additives like plasticizers are used to maintain the workability of the slump, because this concrete, you have to imagine, goes all the way through this pipe down to the bottom of the hole, which could be about 25 to 30 meters, depending on the design, and then it starts going up. So it is coming from the bottom to the top. So it is since it's coming from the bottom to the top, it is compacting itself. That's why the name comes self-compacting concrete. In structures, you use vibros to compact your concrete in the columns and the beams, but in both piles, you don't have that luxury of using vibro. So that's why designed very good. If it's a good design, self-compacting concrete can give you a very good finish to the walls. And then once the concrete comes up, you can see the water, which are the slurry waters inside the hole, will start overflowing on the top of the casings. So once certain levels have been reached inside the shaft, you have to remember to remove the pipes or the casings what has been installed. So if it is casings down to 20 meters, if the concrete height has already come up to 15 meter, that means you have 5 meter of casing embedded in concrete. This needs to be removed piece by piece. At the same time, making sure the casing is not taken out of the concrete, so the concrete is never exposed to open area between the end of the casing and the top of the concrete. So in that way also you protect that there is no collapse falling into the concrete. Why you need to cut the casings and not at the end of the concrete is because when it's getting filled with concrete, you are having friction both outside from the soil and inside from the concrete, and it will be very difficult to forcefully pull out the casing. So when you have a half empty pipe, but at the bottom is already filled with concrete, you might be able to remove some pieces from the top. So you're pulling up from the bottom actually, but making sure the bottom of the casing is never going above the top of the concrete. So in this way, the casings are removed. In fact, there is a special equipment which is used to extract the casings, which is called an extractor. And how this extractor works, I will show it to you in a video which is coming up. So this extractor is placed before the concreting starts, as you have seen in the other picture. This is where the workers are standing is on top of the extractor. So once the concrete is ready to be cast, the extractor is placed around the casing, and this extractor with the jacks, hydraulic jacks, which can clamp the casing and pull it up using special power pack, is used for extracting this special type of casings used for the second pile. So this is the video. Can you see the video? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is an extractor which is actually pulling up the casing in about 50 centimeter lengths. At the same time, the casing is held by the crane. You can see the sling. And once it reaches above the joint level, the workers will stop the operation of the extractor, open the screws and release the casing, which will be set aside. And then concreting will be continued. So this comes in this way, the primary and the secondary piles are cast by having interlocking system, and this basement wall is constructed. So this is one of the first steps in terms of a basement construction. You need to have a basement wall built along the perimeter of the basement. For second piles, various combinations can be done depending on the company having what kind of diameters of casings. Here in Indonesia, we have two combinations, either using 880 diameter, that can be primary and secondary, and we also have 1180 diameter, also primary and secondary. But there are in some projects, we also do a combination of primary pile 880 and the secondary pile 1180. So there are three different ways what we are doing it here in Indonesia, but in different companies around the world, they have different diameters available, and that can be designed according to what they have. So this is a very short description of how a second pile is constructed, and I now show you some pictures from completed projects to show how a second pile wall looks after excavation. The first picture you see is for a pump station which was built in the middle of a river. This was a very challenging project where the water level of the river was above our working platform. So then we had always the risk of a flood, and luckily we never had that difficulty because everything went off very smooth. And the working platform was retained by a sheet pile wall around, and this was backfilled. And our equipment was loaded into this using cranes, and this wall was constructed. After we left the site, the main contractor excavated the basement or this pump pit, or they call it the pump pit, which is basically a basement. And it was, in this case, retained or supported by struts, steel struts. So this is one thing which I would like to highlight to you, because these two pictures are very important for the second part of the presentation. In traditional basement construction, there are two ways you need to support your wall, because when you excavate a wall in front, you are having deflections, and no wall is built to have a freestanding depth of 20 or 30 meter. So as the excavation progresses in the traditional way, you need to support your walls from caving in. So these are the two different ways of doing it. One is using struts, which is very common, and the other one is using ground anchors. So this is a wall for a basement for a very famous shopping mall in Jakarta. And in this particular case, the retaining wall, which was made from secant pile, was retained or tied back using anchors. 3 layers of anchors did the job, and then you have reached the final basement level from where the final basement slab is constructed, and then you have the columns and the beams coming up, and then it goes up to the superstructure. Why I'm mentioning it here now is the second part is slightly different from what you have seen here. So let's move on with the pictures of the secant pile, which are from constructed projects, which gives you a better understanding of secant piles and the basement. This is a car park basement for a bank central office in Jakarta, also using secant piles, where you can see the surface is so clean and alignment is good. The surface of the secant pile actually depends, it has nothing to do with our workmanship. It will depend on the type of soil which will be sticking to the fresh concrete as soon as the piles are cast. If you have clay material, you can easily scrape away the soil from the concrete surface when you do the excavation. But if you have a sandy or silty material, you will have large chunks of soil sticking to the concrete. That is not a collapse, but it is just that the soil is just catching on to the fresh concrete, and later you need to chip it away to get you a surface which is relatively clean. The second picture, what you see in circular shape, was a very challenging job in Bali. Then was a project which needed a bridge, needed to be built on boat piles. But because the slopes of the mountains were so steep, there was no possibility of doing large number of boat piles. So the designer came up with the idea of doing caissons. A 9-meter caisson was planned, but then he had the problem of pushing down the traditional casings like steel or concrete in for this 9-meter. Was not possible. So we worked together on this design, and it was decided we do a caisson using secant pile. So secant pile acted as the wall for the caisson, and because it was circular in shape, there was no need of any strutting or anchor because of the arch effect, as you would have studied in your graduation days. You don't need any extra support for that. So the caisson, after installing this secant pile caisson wall, this excavation was carried down to about 37 meters down. You can see some excavators down there, and the soil was removed, and later this was filled with concrete. And for the top 6 or 9 meters, there was some reinforcement, and this just continued to be the pier for the bridge. So for a 360-meter length bridge, 3 caissons were built. And on top of these caissons, the pier of the bridge was supported. Very good job, very challenging job. We really enjoyed doing it, but there was a lot of difficulties because, again, here, as I mentioned, you can see how much control on the verticality has been maintained, and that's why I showed you that earlier picture where you check the verticality of each pile using this equipment to make sure it is at the right position. Because if at this level, at say 30-35 meters, if one pile is coming inwards and another pile is going outwards, then you have a big double-sized gap which can lead to a lot of difficulties. Another job in Jakarta for an office tower using tied back using ground anchors, traditional way of excavation, building up right to the bottom slab, columns being built, and later you will have connections to the beams to support the columns. Very normal construction. This is another picture for the same shopping mall which I showed earlier. This is from the inside of another part. You can see the hangars are there. This client had a building neighboring to this construction pit, and he wanted his people to come to the, because they own most of the buildings, so they wanted a connectivity to the next building. So they asked us to install some columns in piles only for supporting this bridge, going from one building to the next building across the site. Since all the three buildings were having the same owner, it was easy to build. But again, this picture has a bit of significance for the second part of the presentation. Actually, these kind of columns inside the piles. So in this way, what happened is, besides doing the retaining structure, we also installed piles and up to the ground level. And while the concrete was still fresh in the pile, beams were plunged in, which acts as a support. So the beams are held in position by a certain method, which I'll show it to you later. And later on, a bridge was built connecting all these king posts. So this acted as a temporary column support for this bridge, because the pile could not be built above the ground, because you cannot have casing standing above the ground. The piles maximum can be constructed only until ground level. So in this case, the piles were cast until ground level, and as before the concretes were setting, because normally for self-compacting concrete, you have retardation of about 4 to 6 hours. So it's very easy to plunge in columns when the concrete is still wet. And this was done for this kind of reasons. But a similar reason will be coming in the second part, for which we will be moving on now. This is now the top-down construction. So traditionally, basements have been constructed by excavating doing the excavation all the way to the bottom until the final basement level is reached, and then the building is built upwards. The next few slides will give you an idea how construction can be done bottom from the ground level itself by casting some slabs which are supported on temporary columns. And as the construction progresses downwards, slabs are constructed at whatever levels they are before even reaching the final basement level. So this is a very interesting way of constructing basement, because you save a lot of time. Before, maybe it's a bit confusing now, because if you see the slide, the pictures what we have going to show you, the first I'll show you some drawings which we have made to make you understand how it works. So the drawings will illustrate a complete package of retaining structure and the board pile and the king post installation. And a detailed part of this last part of this presentation, we will focus on what is king post, how king posts are installed, and what are the functions of a king post, because that is the most critical part for a top-down construction. Why it's called top-down construction, you'll understand it at the end of the presentation. So we have having a greenfield project here in this picture which we have drawn for you. There is nothing on that ground. First, we start with the guide wall construction for the retaining structure, which we have already discussed earlier. And then we start the construction of the second pile, which are the left and the right extreme on the left and the right side. What you have seen, the narrow ones, they are the diameters for the retaining structure, the second pile construction, what you have seen earlier. And the middle three ones are the board piles. The board piles obviously will be bigger diameter of 1.2, 1.5. For our company, the biggest diameter we have done is about 3.5 diameter down to about 85 meter in Kuala Lumpur. So bigger diameter piles are drilled, and then concreting is done. That means it is just an illustration to show that these things, these are not exactly done in the sequence. Sometimes the retaining wall is done and followed by the boat piles on today, and tomorrow the second piles are done and all that. But just to make it easier to understand, I am showing you that now in the picture you have seen the retaining wall has been cast, the boat piles have been cast also to the ground. And this is where the change happens from the traditional construction. Now, normally in a normal case, what would have happened is, as soon as the boat pile construction is done and the project is completed, the foundation contractor that is will go out of the site, and the main contractor takes over the work, and he will start his traditional excavation of the basement and then doing the tieback system using the struts and the anchors. But in this condition, this is where the change happens. As soon as the boat pile is cast, columns which are pre-designed steel elements are plunged into this fresh concrete. As I told you earlier, these are going to be the temporary columns until the basement is finished construction. And until then, these columns will carry all the slabs will be casting during the process. If these columns are designed properly, as the excavation goes downward, actually the building of the construction of the building can go upward also. As soon as the columns are finished installation, then the backfilling is done and the top of the king post is held in place in special method. The detailing I am coming to the later part in this presentation. So I'm just giving you a picturization of how things work overall. So the king post is plunged into the boat pile. Then the top of the king post is secured and backfilling is done. Once the concrete has reached 2 or 3 days of strength, then the top of the king post is released and the casing is extracted. Once all the projects, all the boat piles which were having, see the foundation actually doesn't have to have all foundation piles to carry king post. There'll be a group of piles under a column. So there'll be only one king post in one of the columns, in one of the boat piles, which will carry the temporary load because the full loading is still not coming. So as soon as the foundations are done, that is including the retaining wall, the boat pile and the installation of the king post, we need to cast a capping beam. Along with the capping beam, the ground floor slab is cast. This is where the changes are happening. Before this slab is only possible until the basement is built. Say if you have a 3 basement level, so you have a final basement, the second basement slab, the first basement slab, and then only you can cast the ground floor slab. In this case, the ground floor slab is cast first. And then because there will be some openings in the ground floor slab, excavator is lowered into those openings and excavation is carried out below that slab. So actually you are having already a basement excavation starting up even before reaching the final level, and the ground floor slab is already constructed. All these steps will be very clearly explained to you from actual pictures taken from projects. But this is the process, how it happens. So now we have reached the first basement slab. I have taken an example of only 2 basements just to make it faster. Your ground floor slab is cast, you are excavated down to the first basement level, and then you cast your first basement slab. So you see, even before your final basement, your 2 slabs are constructed. And now the excavation for the final basement is done. And this is followed by the casting of the final basement slab. And then the columns start going up because this king post are part of the steel requirement of final design of the column. So normally because these king posts, which are very heavy steel members, nominal reinforcement of the usual diameters of D25 or D32 are placed around the steel member, and the casting is done to form the final column. So in this way you can see the construction of a basement is not bottom to the top, it is from top to bottom. That is why it's called a top-down construction. But there is a possibility, as I said, which I'll again show you in pictures later on. If the king posts are strong enough, designed strong to take the load for a few floors above the ground, you can construct as soon as the ground floor slab is constructed. Part of the team will do the excavation part below the ground, and the other part of the team can start constructing the superstructure for a few floors. The experience what we have in Jakarta is that by the time the contractor, this is normally done by the main contractor, by the time the contractor reached the fourth basement slab, the building was already 9 floors above the ground. So that was kind of a balance in the design. You cannot go higher than that. And after that, you need the real columns to support the load, to transfer the loads to the board piles. So this is a very inventive way of constructing a basement, especially in urban areas where space is very limited, and there are other constraints which I will explain also in the end of the presentation. So what is a king post? King post is just a steel member, specially designed to take certain loads. And here the design part comes into play because the designer must be very clear on the loads what is carried by the steel members. So wherever there is a plunging link into the board pile, you have the shear studs to transfer the shear loads, and on the top you have the plate to support into the ground floor slab and the beams, which is the first part which is cast. So we go into the details of installation of a king post because that is a very critical part of this method. Why I say critical part is, if the king post is not in the right place, the whole thing is out. So this is a very tricky job which needs a lot of precision, a lot of good design, and a very good contractor who knows really what he's doing. If the installation of the king post is mainly controlled by the template which is placed on the casing. So normally the template which is having the dimensions, which is having plates, flaps. These are the flaps which can be opened to allow the king post to pass through. And this template is actually placed on the casing, which will be shown in the next slide. It will be placed in the top of the casing, in the right position, in the right alignment, perfectly controlled to make sure the king post which comes later goes down into the correct position of the pile. Because once you fix the template, once the pile is cast in the right position and the template is placed on top of the casing in the right position, there is no way the installation of the king post can go wrong. Because being such a heavy steel member, it just will not go anywhere except to the place where it's supposed to be. So this is a template, and this is how the king post will go into the casing. The casing is still in the ground because you will not extract the casing until the few days after the king post is installed, because this actually holds the king post in place until the strength of the concrete in the board pile is achieved. Because you have to understand that the holding of the king post is only that 2 to 3 meter of plunge depth into the pile. The lowering is done using a crane and controlled by a group of people, which again, we have a nice video coming up later. So here we go. So the concreting is completed for the board pile. Immediately the surveyor and the engineering team comes and marks the axis on the casing, on top of which the axis of the template is matched and kept in alignment and is fixed by special screws so that the template will not move. It's very important the template should not move, because if the template moves, then the king post will be in the wrong position. And then it might still go into the pile, because if the piles are big and the king post dimensions are smaller, it will go into the pile, but it might not be in the center of the pile. So you will have an eccentric loading on the pile, which is not actually good for the loading point from the design side. So these 3 steps are done in about, I would say, in about 45 minutes. And then the king post, and during this time, the king post, the crane carrying the king post will be coming near to the casing and waiting. And as soon as the template is fixed, the flaps are open, the king post is lowered slowly and controlled, monitored by the surveyor to make sure it's going vertical and all the way to the correct levels. And then the flaps are closed. And once the flaps are closed, there are some pins to be added, and then it will be welded. So the king post will not move. It's in the right place, and that's the end of the installation of the king post. So you see a picture in this is I think this is a picture from Germany. Uh, some piles in a line are already having King's post installed, and they are waiting for the strength of the concrete of the board pile to be reached. Normally, the initial setting strength is enough. So within 48 hours, the flaps are open. Backfilling is done with fine material to keep extra support on the blind bore of the pile to support the king post, and then the um, template is removed, and also the casings. This first picture shows you, this is just one of the first pictures of a basement, shows you how this king post will look when it is inserted into the piles at cutoff level. This is a picture taken, this is very much deeper in the ground, but this picture is shown now just to give you an understanding of the king post already plunged into the pile. This cutoff level would have been maybe about 18 or 20 meters below ground. And this is how it look. You can see it is almost in perfect position in the center of the piles. Okay, so we will now see a short video about how the installation of the king post happens. The video starts after the template has been placed on top of the casing and fixed by the special screws, and the crane is now coming with the king post hanging, and now you'll see how it's happening. This was a picture taken from the project in Jakarta for the World Trade Center. It's done in a bit of speed, so we don't waste too much time watching it. So the crane coming closer. There is a supervisor who controls the movement of the crane. In this case, we also had inclinometer fixed on top, which you can see an orange cable coming down later. You can see it. Oh yeah, this is the orange cable, and it is connected to a computer, so that inclinometer will giving signals where you can read this in the computer, and you can see whether also as an extra step, which is part of the quality control of Bauer, as an extra step, the columns or the king post are going perfectly vertical. So when you need to open the flap, you can open the flap when there is a joint for the king post, because some members are not long enough to reach the final basement, and you need some joints. So the king post is lowered by this crane. Surveyors are actually monitoring this from a distance using total station. The inclinometer also giving directions to this computer. Supervisors, engineers are checking, making sure it's going down vertical. People are taking photographs from the client side, videos. A lot of things happen. So there is a mark on the king post which allows the supervisor to know when to stop lowering it, because that is all using the measurements from the basement depths and the cutoff level of the piles and the final basement of the final position of the ground floor slab. Now we go to the reality. This is from the same project where you just saw the video. Some excavation, the basement has been constructed as I have told you earlier. The second pile wall looks beautiful, all in one line, no bulging, capping beam is done, starter bars for the upper part of the capping beam is ready. Excavation has been done for a few meters and then the already installed king posts are exposed. This cap on top you can see a steel plate. This is where the ground floor slab will be cast, and you have already the chipping into the retaining wall already completed. So after this, they would have installed the scaffolding to support the slab formwork, and the slab will be cast. So if you see the picture on your right side, this is exactly the same picture where the ground floor slab has already been cast. Remember, this is a project for 5 basements. And now we already, as soon as the piling is completed, we are already excavated and exposed, and we have already cast the ground floor slab. So this gives you an extreme benefit by in terms of speed. When you go further into the further down the presentation, you can see more and more slides to make you understand how the whole thing works. So openings are left in the slab in pre-designated positions where the excavators will be working down in the beginning, but once it is beyond a certain depth, it will go to the underside of the slab and push the soil into these openings from where other excavators will load it to the trucks. Once the depth gets deeper, then you will have special long arm excavators loading the soil from the deep inside the basement, and the trucks which will be running around on the slab will be removing it from the site. So in this way you have even a clean site. And normally when you have basement in the traditional excavation methods, during rainy season, especially in tropical countries in this part of the world, you have a very messy site. Sometimes even excavations are held up due to heavy rain, site being flooded and ramp being slippery. The trucks cannot go down into the basement and so forth. So this is the first slab which has been constructed, which I have told you is the ground floor slab. Some more pictures to give you an understanding what is happening. Some piles which has been cast to the top need to be chipped down to the actual levels. Trucks all waiting. This excavator will bring some soil near to the edge, and this excavator will load it into these trucks. So there is a sequence of works which is happening at the same time. So in this second picture, you see there is on one side a casting preparation is getting ready. Steel bar is being readied to cast the next level of basement. This is the ground floor slab as you have seen with the openings. This is all from the same picture or the same side, so you can relate in terms of continuity. This is the ground floor slab. So below the one part you can see the works for the next level of basement is already in progress. The lean concrete has been done. The steel bar fabrication for the slab is going on, whereas on this side the excavation is still going on, and maybe some other excavators already below the slab inside, deep inside, excavating and then moving soil to these openings. So a lot of works going on. Again, some more pictures are taken from inside the basement. Very beautiful pictures, which gives you a good understanding how things looks like. The wall looks beautiful, no bulges, perfect king posts supporting this ground floor slab. King posts. So this will be the king post what we have installed earlier, which you have seen in the video. Again, the next level of slab, due to some reason, the height is a bit higher than the excavated level, so they have the base scaffolding done. This excavator is already into a deeper part. Slab construction going on, tying of rebar going on. So when you're casting the ground floor slab, you actually are putting the reinforcement for the future column, for which the king post would be part of the central part. So this is where the reinforcement starter bars are hanging. The second picture, you see some connectivity being done to complete the length of the column. The two floors, this is the second basement. The first floor is there already. So you need to cast this column into a proper column as per the design. The king post, remember, is only a temporary structure, a temporary column to hold the temporary loads. This is a fully column fully connected with rebar, reinforcement bar, and now the formwork will be put around this and the normal concreting will be done. There is another one here. So this is how the basements are constructed step by step. This is a beautiful picture which I told you as before. If the king post is designed properly, you can have the structure going upwards and basement construction going downwards. This is the absolute fastest way some building can be made. I think this was one of the projects which I mentioned. The basement was about 4 or 5 basements, and by the time they finished that, this building was already about 9 floors above the ground. So not only the basement, they are not waiting for the basement to finish. That means when you have these floors getting ready, So overlapping works can be started, like masonry work or electrification or plumbing or whatever. So this actually speeds up the construction process. That's why in modern countries, because of these new kind of techniques, buildings are built very fast. Here you can see the superstructure is, this part is already going on, and the other part is a similar picture from before, where the excavation is still in progress because the basement is not even completed. Yeah, this is the basement construction part is going on. Okay, so these are the two buildings which we have just constructed. You can imagine there are two structures of about almost 48 story and 5 basements. The retail building, which is a shorter one, this is the plaza, was built in 33 months. And the other one, which is slightly taller. For some time, this used to be the tallest building in terms of height, not in terms of number of floors, because number of floors is never a consideration for the height of the building. You can have a shallow floor-to-floor height and you have more floors. But in terms of height itself, this building was one of the tallest until recent times, where another building next to this has come up, which is higher by about 20 or 30 meters than this. But you can imagine there's such a big a tall building, which is 48 stories, completed in 36 months because of these kind of modern construction methods. So for me, I think this is quite a good method used in urban areas where traditional basement excavation cannot be done, because for the simple reason that, for example, if ground anchors are used, maybe you might not be able to drill ground anchors because of your neighboring structure is very close. Maybe it is already having a basement, so the neighbor would not allow you to drill holes into his property. The other supporting system was the struts. Struts again is not, sometimes the normal steel elements are not good enough to carry the load, so they need to be custom made and has to be procured from the market. So this is a cost item, production time, logistics, and afterwards maybe this has no more use to it unless it's a rental basis. And sometimes in some countries used struts are not allowed to be reused until there is some verification process. So all these are unwanted headaches. Whereas here in this method, both the functions of a ground anchor or the strut is taken up by the slabs of the building, which was anywhere there, but they are given an additional responsibility of acting for supporting the retaining structure. So the slab of the basement supports the retaining wall, and in fact I'm told by some of the designers the deflections by this method is much less behind the wall compared to the traditional way of using anchors or struts. Apparently this is a more rigid support than the anchor and the struts. So I think I've explained enough for the two methods what we have come across. One is, the first part was the construction of a retaining wall, and the second part was how a basement is built in top-down way. So I would give back the mic to the moderator, and I think we have the session for the questions now. Professor Matthew?
Yes. Participants, please feel free to interact with the expert.
Sir?
Yes, sir.
Why did you say king post is temporary column?
Because the original column is yet to be built, so it is until the full column is built, it is acting as a temporary support to the slabs in the ground floor and the basement. but the main column will be built up later as the construction progresses from the final basement slab upwards. So until the final basement slab is cast, these columns are temporarily acting as column. These king posts are temporarily acting as columns supporting the already cast beams and slabs. But still the full column needs to be constructed, which I showed you some pictures earlier, where you need to put up the reinforcement around this king post, and the column will be cast into rectangular or circular shapes as per the design.
Okay, sir.
Dear participants, in case of inquiries, please interact with our expert. Sir, will it be okay for you to share your mail ID with us? With the participants also?
Yeah, I can do that.
Sir, what all are the forces we need to consider while designing secant pile?
The forces are all the same. It is just a different way of constructing a retaining wall, because whether it's a diaphragm wall or a secant pile, the forces considered for the deflections are the same. There is no any particular requirement for us to be considered for the secant pile construction. It is just that in very congested cities like Jakarta, where traffic is one of the worst in the world, when you do diaphragm wall is an equally good retaining structure, which I didn't have the time to present actually. Diaphragm wall is a very good structure, but the problem with the diaphragm wall, the volumes are very huge. Especially when you do the excavation for a 5 or 5 meter, 6 or 5 or 6 meter panels down to 40 meter, the volume of soil excavated is huge. And this needs to be removed from the project continuously. And once the excavation is completed, you need an equal amount of concrete to come into the site, which is in terms of logistics is a huge nightmare, especially when you have traffic jams. Whereas in secant piles, you have very slender elements to be cast. So your risk factor is reduced a lot. Even if there is a problem for supply, because the secant pile is cased to a very deep depth, your hole is relatively stable. Only if, for example, today you see there is a problem, you cannot get concrete for whatever reason. Either the batching plant has broken down or there is a big traffic jam in the city due to some demonstration, then the hole can be left open. But since the hole is having very long casings and is also stabilized using water and stabilizing slurry, when you come back to do tomorrow, the only thing you need to do is clean it up, because whatever suspensions you had in the water or the slurry would have settled down. So the only thing you need to do is clean it out and then do the normal concreting as what you would have done in the normal way. So the advantage, I would say, for secant pile is that the material supply requirements are very small, so it's easier to manage, and the risk is reduced a lot compared to diaphragm walls.
Thank you, sir.
Any more questions from participants? I hope there are no more questions from the participants. Matthew sir, can we move on to the vote of thanks?
Yes, please proceed, Vidya sir.
Okay, sir. Let me welcome Professor G.T. Rose for the vote of thanks.
respected Head of Department, Dr. B.V. Matthews, sir, respected expert of session, Mr. Hemant Narayanan, dear colleagues and dear participants. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose vote of thanks to the eminent expert of the day, Mr. Hemant Narayanan, on the topic, second wall construction. I would like to mention our deep sense of appreciation to you, sir. Sir has explained in detail on second wall, its construction sequences like laying of guide wall, installation of primary and secondary pile, importance of checking verticality, need of cleaning casing, concreting, etc. Secant pile wall is a wall constructed by having interlocking piles executed in a particular sequence of primary piles and secondary piles. Primary piles are installed first and then are reinforced. Later, secondary piles are drilled in between the already installed primary piles and also cutting the primary piles to have an interlocking pile wall. Secondary piles are reinforced. The drilling process for both the primary piles and the secondary piles are the same. Both are drilled with the extendable double wall casings, which can be joined in pieces and pushed down until stable soil is reached. After the installation of casing, it must be checked to its verticality by using cordon device. Then sir explained the importance of cleaning of casing and various methods of cleaning like using cleaning bucket and airlift process. Then measure the final depth after cleaning. The steel cages are inserted next and check whether proper spacings are provided. Then concreting is done by tremie pipe installation. Casing is removed by pulling out from bottom. Then sir mentioned the top-down construction and its advantages. Step for constructing a secant pile wall and a border pile for top-down construction steps. For projects with deep basements, the most common method of construction is to excavate in stages, install the tie-back system, which may be using struts or ground anchors, and continue excavation until the final level is reached, and then cast the basement slab. In this method, excavation speed and to some extent the weather will be detrimental to the progress of the project. In some locations, ground anchors may not be possible due to existing neighboring buildings with the basement. Top-down construction is a reverse method of bottom-up construction. Pre-designed steel elements are plunged into the board pile just after the concreting of the board pile is completed. These steel elements, called king post, act as a temporary column until the full column is cast. Using the king post to support the load, first basement slab is cast and excavation is carried out under this basement slab and so forth until the final basement level is reached. These slabs act as lateral bracing for the perimeter wall and reduce soil movement. Later, the columns are cast to the designed dimensions where the king post becomes a part of the reinforcement requirement. As the installation of king post exactly on the center of pile is the most critical part of the top-down construction, sir explained in detail the various stages of installation of king post column. Sir, as you explained each step with the help of site images and videos, it was very much useful for all of us to understand each step easily. Once again, on behalf of Civil Engineering Department of College of Engineering, Kidangur, I extend my sincere gratitude to you, sir, for accepting our invitation and spend your valuable time with us to share your expertise on secant pile wall and top-down construction method. Thank you very much, sir, for the wonderful section. Thank you very much.
Yeah, personally, it has been a privilege for me to address such an esteemed audience, and my special thanks to Professor Matthew and his team, who has done a great job in getting connected with so many experts, who has given very good presentations. And this program has been very well organized, which is like a breath of fresh air in these difficult times. Stay safe. Thank you.
Hemant sir, sir, I request you to please stay back for a photo session, sir.
Okay.
Dear participants, we'd request all of you all to kindly switch on your camera for a photo session. Okay, thank you, sir.
So, Professor Matthew,
Thank you, Hemant sir. Thank you.
Dear participants,